Hey everybody, I am joining this match in the Heads Up Pokershibes tournament. This is the eagerly anticipated BioLuminous versus Egption match. Both of these guys are pretty well known as being good players. Right now it's pretty evenly matched. I joined into the match a little late because I just woke up. But now we've got Egption and BioLuminous. BioLuminous has a slight lead over Egption. Big raise on the button there, or a min raise actually. So that wouldn't be a big raise. BioLuminous don't want no part of that. Both of these guys are pretty accomplished players on this site. They have a pretty good-natured rivalry going, as pretty much anybody on this site has, because it's a smaller site. So everybody knows everybody else, and we all are rivals. I got knocked out of the tournament first round because I suck by Kitten, who we can see is railing the tournament. And now we have a little bet by Egption. We've got a pretty open board here. Possibility of a wheel, two pair. And of course, looks like Bio don't want no part of that, which pretty much evens the game back up. And I'm trying to contact DJ Homeschool. I was hoping he would come on here and do my thingamabobber. And it looks like Egption is streaming this. He's a pretty big streamer here. He actually streams on higher stakes things and kind of just hangs out with us every so often. Egption stream is twitch.tv/EGPTION. Uh-oh, BioLuminous makes a pretty big bet considering this pot. There's a lot out there. Possibly a wheel. Could have two pair. There's no flush possible. Um, I don't know what Egption's got. I'm guessing some sort of middle pair or middling hand. Just making him want to decide whether he should play. And Egption lays it down. I guess he'd rather keep his stack than risk it, which is probably a smart move on his part. The blinds are still pretty small. It's not like either of them are in danger of getting blinded crushed. Ooh, and it looks like we might get a little action in this hand. Small raise, min raise by BioLuminous, followed by another raise by Egption on top of that. And it looks like Bio needs to consider what his option is. Possibly Bio was just raising to raise because he folded to the re-raise. And unfortunately, I probably won't be able to record and commentate on all of the matches in this one, mostly because the tournament is somewhat informal, where you're just basically informed of your opponent and you have to face them heads up within a small amount of time. There's no set schedule really. There's suggested times, but it's kind of up to the two opponents to work out when their schedule is. There's two options. When you go up against the opponent, you can either agree to do one match or best out of three. I agreed to do just one match against Kitten because I figured it would be less embarrassing to get beaten by Kitten once than twice. So I figured we would just go ahead and do the one option. So she advances to the next bracket. Kitten and I were actually in the early bracket. So many people signed up for this tournament because it was a free roll that they actually had to assign an extra bracket to make sure everybody fits in. And there's an interesting flop, 5-6-5. You know, maybe somebody got a piece of it, maybe didn't. Even if they did get a piece of it, I would expect to see only a little bit of betting at it because probably only one person hit it, if either of them hit it at all. But we got a small raise by Bio and a small call by Egption. So they're both into this hand at least a little bit. Egption could very well be sandbagging Bio. Or Bio could possibly have a hand. It's kind of hard to say when you can't see people's cards, but that's what's fun about commentating blind, is I get to say whatever shit I want. And if there's no showdown, only the people watching Egption stream can see if it's good. Oh, and we got a pretty big bet here. And it looks like nothing but air from BioLuminous, and Egption had a pair of fours, which he apparently believed in, because he called and won the hand. And that gives him a little bit of a stack advantage over BioLuminous. Again, the blinds still aren't big enough where he's got a huge stack advantage over him. He can't really quite use the blinds to just beat up on a lower stack at this point. But he does definitely have an advantage to where Bio could be eliminated in a bad hand pretty quickly. And Egption is a very aggressive player. If anybody's played with him before, you know that he definitely will use a stack advantage into his favor. He's one of our higher stakes players on this site. Of course, we're playing for Dogecoin, so everything seems way higher than it is, which is part of the fun of playing Dogecoin. That's why I recommend everybody play some Dogecoin poker, because for $5 you can play like a 30,000 Dogecoin tournament or cash game. Egption actually plays in the higher stakes real money games on different sites across the internet. And it looks like Egption's going to surrender that hand. And there we see Egption putting some more pressure on Bio. You know, Bio definitely has more pressure on him to actually catch a hand, whereas Egption can just kind of lean on him. Egption's definitely got a little room to breathe in the match now. I'm a little surprised Egption's letting him get an extra card for free. Bio is one of our winningest players when it comes to the biggest tournament here. Every Sunday there's a million Dogecoin guaranteed tournament, which Bio has taken down numerous times. I believe actually Egption's taken it down a few times as well. This is one of the matches that was really anticipated. Actually, BioLuminous requested to go against Egption first, basically wanting to prove that he's a very good player. And since Egption's probably our highest staked player, or stakes player, or at least our highest profile high stakes player, Bio challenged him and said he wanted to take him on first in the heads-up tournament. Basically, as kind of a gain respect kind of thing. And Egption leans on him again and basically pushes him off the hand. Whether or not he has a hand, we'd have to go see his stream. Again, that's twitch.tv/EGPTION is his Twitch stream. And he streams all the time. Unlike me, I stream every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. I stream my home game. Everybody check that out. It's twitch.tv/illpoet13. Egption, on the other hand, streams all the time, day or night. You can find a good many times where Egption's streaming. And he's twitch.tv/EGPTION. Ooh, and there's a big hand there. There was a min raise. And now we've got a really crazy board. Ace, king, ace. There's two hearts and a spade out there. And somebody very well could have just walked into a pretty big hand, and they're trying to kind of cover it. Egption throws a little bet on him. And now Bio's got some serious decision making to do. And he lays it down. And if we look into the chat, we'll see that Kitten is cheering for BioLuminous. She calls him Mini Seal. Not sure exactly why. Kitten is who defeated me in the heads-up tournament, and I wish her the best. She's a very sweet lady. BB Jones has a question. BB Jones is a very fun player. He was actually in my stream last week. He always comes and hangs out with everybody. And the site is definitely more interesting for having BB on it. And I guess him and Kitten are going up next, and they are in the chat deciding whether or not they should do one game or the best of three. And really the only rule with that is that both players have to decide beforehand and establish whether it's going to be just one game or best of three. You can't say middle of the match or at the end of the match, oh, I want to do best of three. It has to be established before any chips are put onto the table. I'm not sure exactly how many people in all are in this tournament. Let me see if I can ask the lobby and find out. Oh, and we actually got a showdown up, and it looks like Egption just ended this game right here. No, wait. And we got a suck out on the river with Bio went all in with King 7. Egption called him with Ace 9. And Bio hit his 7 on the flop. Then Egption hit a 9 on the river, and Bio caught a king on the river. Yeah. So that was a shitty commentary there, but fuck it. Anyway, we're back to even now, and basically the two competitors are pretty evenly matched. There's no real stack advantage, and we're right back to where we started. That's where the fun of this heads-up tournament comes, is that, you know, anything, anytime, one card can change it and put it back to even. I thought that was going to be the end of the match, but now the match is back into a dead heat with no real advantages. Kitten's saying there was 36 entrants in this tournament overall. Oh, we got a little bit of action from Egption here. He throws a little bit more over than a minimum raise onto BioLuminous, who's now considering. Oh, and Bio throws an even bigger raise on Egption. We may see some sparks fly here if Egption calls, or comes over the top of Bio for maybe a whole stack. And Egption throws it down, decides he doesn't want to risk that much money on those two cards. And then this gives Bio the stack advantage. It's not a huge stack advantage. The blinds are still pretty small, 50 and 100, but they are starting to get up there. These kinds of differences are going to matter more and more in the next few minutes. Kitten just said that she was going to the store, so I told her to bring back weed, because that's internet humor. See, there's really no way actually that Kitten could bring me weed because she lives in California and I don't. I live on the East Coast, but it's still funny for me to say go to the store and bring back weed, because it's the internet. Got another min raise from Egption. Bio is once again considering. Looks like he's going to make the call and we're going to see a flop. And it's kind of a dry flop. I mean, unless you have two hearts, or say pocket queens, pocket nines, or pocket threes, and there's still really not a whole lot possible out there. If I had to guess, I would say it was a high card versus high card situation here. Both players are kind of acting like that by checking around. Oh, and we see a very small raise by Egption. It's not a min raise, but it's very close. A min raise would be 100. Egption bets 144. And that is very popular on this site to manually type in your bids or your bets so that it's weird random numbers. Quite a few players do that. And I've often had a theory that it was some sort of a tell, but unfortunately I haven't really been able to see a pattern overall to make a generalization, like, oh, if somebody's manually betting, then they're bluffing, or manually betting, then they're calling. Seems like it really varies from player to player, and some players do it regardless of whether they're bluffing or representing true. Yeah, unfortunately poker's not that simple. We got a big flop here. There was a minimum raise, and then it came out king, king, 4. The flop was checked. Looks like Egption makes slightly under a double bet with 195. Again, we'll see that manual betting there. And Bio's considering. Well, it looks like he doesn't want to put any more money into that hand. And that keeps Egption pretty close to even up. You know, Bio still has a slight stack advantage on him. And there we see a more than, oh no, that's just a min raise. The blinds have gone up to 75, 150, and Egption made a minimum raise on the button. And after the initial action, it looks like nobody wants to play the flop. And of course it came out a little weird, king 5-5. Now we have a 5-6 of clubs, which gives a slight club draw. And an ace on the river. We might see some sparks. Looks like Buyer don't want no part of it. And Egption throws out slightly over a 2-blind bet. Manually betting 351. Buyer's considering again. And he calls, so we'll actually get to see a showdown. And it looks like Egption had the king, which actually switches the momentum into Egption's favor. Now he has the slight chip advantage. That is a good point. I do not know if this is a one-on-one match or if it's... No, it is. Okay, so there isn't a 2 out of 3 stipulation on this one. This is just one match to rule them all. Whoever wins this match will advance in the tournament. Got another min raise on the button from Egption. He opted not to manually raise that one. And it looks like Bio says his cards aren't worth the min raise. And Egption wanted to know if any of the other tournaments were quicker, and I was just telling him from my experience, me and Kitten had a pretty big scrap, and that it seems like in the heads-up tournaments, either they end really, really fast, and either they're really, really fast, like within the first 5 minutes of the match, or they drag out, like this one, to, we're at 21 minutes of commentary, and I believe the match was going on for 15 minutes before that, so 35 minutes for heads-up matches, pretty long online. Especially when we're talking about a free roll. There's no real money. Neither of these contestants have any Dogecoin invested in the match or money. You know, it's all for a free roll. The winner of this tournament gets 105 Dogecoin, which, to put that in perspective, right now is about 15 US dollars. Of course, all the players don't quite see Dogecoin in terms of its dollar value. Some players really do, and we catch a lot of shit on the internet about how Dogecoin isn't really worth anything, it's not worth playing for. But because it's a speculative nature, a lot of players look at it as having potential value versus having its actual value now, especially right now in the middle of Bitcoin's big crash. With Bitcoin crashing, all of the other cryptocurrencies crash, especially the big three. The big three being Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Dogecoin. Well, we got a little raise from BioLuminous there, and Egption puts all of his chips in. Bio's considering, and decides he doesn't want to risk it all on those two cards. I think we may be getting a little bit of impatience from both players as the match wears on. And I've said that before, and heads up, especially at the long end of a tournament, patience is key. You know, if you want to really be successful in tournament and poker, and especially when you're heads up against someone, if you can outweight them, a lot of times they'll get impatient and start making mistakes. We got a min raise, King, King, 8, 2 clubs out there. Egption throws a minimum bet out. And Bio concedes the hand, further giving Egption almost a 2-to-1 lead over him. Oh, more than a 2-to-1. So Egyptian's now the stack favorite. He has more than twice the stack that Bio has. In the chat there, accusing Egption of bullying with his stack, which is a perfectly valid tactic in poker. If you're going to get upset that somebody's going to bully you with a chip stack, you probably shouldn't play because you don't want to get rattled. And that's exactly what pretty much any competent player is going to do. If he's got a huge chip stack over his opponent, he's going to use it to his full advantage to try and intimidate and basically force a lot of folds, thus the opponent starts bleeding out, because they want to make it feel like every time they call a hand that they're going to have to make a stack decision. And we see a little minimum raise from the bio on the button, which Egption calls. And bio's definitely starting to get into a pretty worrisome position here. We got a straight out there. There's a flush draw. There's a pretty good amount of money in the pot considering what bio has. It's almost half of his whole stack. Egption throws a small manual bet out there of 199. And then see bio's considering, and he decides to give it up. Because bio correctly recognizes that pretty much anything at this point that he calls is going to put him on for his whole stack. The blinds are big. Egption shoves all in. We got some action. We got King 3 suited versus Queen 2. And it looks like bio saves himself, gives himself the chip advantage. Once again, we've been moved back to even. This is a pretty scrappy match, folks. Egption just couldn't get the job done on him, and that brings him back to being neck and neck with the Egption. Pretty much just saved bio's ass, put him back in the game. And Egption raising. The blinds are starting to get a little dangerous to the players. Starting to make every hand count so much more. And we got a bunch of clubs on this flop. Egption started with a small raise, min bet raise, and bio called. Now we've got 3 clubs. And neither player seems real interested in it, which is kind of strange. Just considering there's an ace out there. Now there's 2 aces out there. There's a lot of hands that could be made out of this. There's a full house, a flush. You know, there's always the backdoor flush draw. I always call it a 4 flush whenever, you know, there's 4 clubs out there. And it never hit. A straight did hit. A possible straight anyway. There's a possible straight, possible flush, possible full house. Well, possible quads too if somebody has pocket aces. But short of the pre-flop raising, there hasn't really been much action on this hand. Neither player really wants to make much. Then we get a 415 manual bet from Egption. He's not going to let the showdown come for free. Bio calls. We have a pair of queens. The pot splits with aces and queens with a 10 kicker for both players. This definitely has been what everybody was kind of expecting it to be, a big scrap, having 2 really good players going neck and neck like this. I got a minimum raise from Egption on the button. And bio doesn't like his 2 cards, tosses them in, giving Egption the slight chip advantage. Now it's bio's turn to raise on the button. And Egption doesn't like his cards, so it just goes back and forth. And of course, in a heads-up match, you're going to see a lot of back and forth. That's kind of the nature of the beast. Now it's Egption's turn to raise on the button. There's definitely not any love poker going. They're not letting each other see any hands for free, making them pay for their big blinds. And they're basically just scrapping to keep even. And then another re-raise, and a bigger re-raise by BioLuminous. Egption says he don't want nothing to do with that. Because in this point in the game with the blinds as they are, a big re-raise like that, if he calls, it pretty much puts them both on their stacks. And yeah, the love poker is definitely gone. It seems like The norm of the day right now is if you're on the blind to raise it and make your opponent pay for his big blind. And Egption decides to switch tack and fold out his dealer button, possibly because of the re-raise last time. And we got a little name calling in chat. BioLuminous says, "You're a dingus egg." I'm not sure what a dingus is. And I guess egg we're referring to Egption. Ah, and he said, "I just figured I hadn't called you a name in a while." So he figured, you know, should be a little trash talking going on for the fans, for the railbirds like me. And Egption folds. And Bio's definitely starting to get himself a nice chip lead here. He's got almost double Egption stack. And of course, you know, one all in could change that. He doesn't want to play his dealer button. I was a little surprised. I was kind of expecting him to lean on Egption a little bit, but he must know that he's got to kind of have cards to back up what he does at this point, as Egption's going to be more likely to call. And at the end of the day, to win this tournament, you do have to win a showdown. And at that point, Bio leans on Egption a little bit. Egption didn't want none of it. Bio definitely has the chip lead now with more than double Egption stack. And we are coming up on a half-hour long match, which is definitely a long match here. Oh crap, I've been plugging Egption's, I've been misrepresenting Egption's Twitch stream. It is actually IR. If you want to see Egption's stream, it's twitch.tv/IREGPTION. IR Egption. There's no Y in there. It's probably not even actually pronounced Egption, but that's the closest I can come to what to call him. Bio's leaning on him some more, applying some pressure. BB is... Whoa, we got it all in. We got a little bit of action from Egption. He put his whole chip stack on behind these two cards. And you can almost feel Bio really wanting to call here. But he doesn't. He decides ultimately, I think, that his cards aren't strong enough to beat him in a showdown. And Egption and BB Jones are having a little back and forth in chat. I think BB Jones is talking about driving to Egption's house to give him some Kleenexes. Egption says he was kick his ass. Now he's putting all of his chips in. Once again, sticking his neck out. Bio min raised him, and then Egption said, "I'll see your min raise and put all my fucking chips in, bitch." And then BioLuminous decided that he still didn't want to play that many hands. He didn't want to surrender his chip lead that easily. Which brings Egption into desperation mode, possibly, or just ultra aggression mode. I mean, it's up to you to decide. If we were watching his stream, we might know. And again, Bio doesn't want to risk all of his chips against it. I think Egption is sensing a little weakness in Bio for not calling and trying to exploit that fact. And he is gradually building his chip stack back and chipping away at BioLuminous's chip advantage. Now we've got back to pretty much close. They're within one big blind of each other. We get a raise on the button from Egption. Bio folds, decides he don't want no part of that either. This has definitely come into one of the longer heads-up matches. Even what I would consider to be a long match would be 15 to 20 minutes. We're actually coming up on, I believe, the hour mark. Yeah, and BioLuminous makes the comment that they're still neck and neck even an hour after playing. So we are at the hour mark. This is really long for these heads-up matches. The blinds are going to start really posing a big threat. Yeah, an Egption saying that's why I chose not to do best out of 3, because he knew it was going to be a really long and scrappy match. He been raised on the button, Bio folds. Well, we got another raise on the button, and Egption goes all in. We may see some sparks here. We might get a big hand. And I think the time is starting to wear on both opponents. I think both of them just kind of want it to be over. But not enough for Bio to call those 2 cards. This puts Egption out in the lead once again. Not a huge stack advantage, but with these blinds, any stack advantage is a really good one. Another raise on the button from Bio. This has been a pretty worn, tried and true tactic here for them to raise each other on the big blinds. You see that quite a bit in heads-up poker. Although, having a button advantage isn't quite the advantage it is in, like, say, a 10-man game or a 9-man game or a multiplayer tournament. The button is a bigger advantage, although it is still somewhat of an advantage in heads-up. Again, the button raises, and the big blind folds. And we see the same thing. And we got a pretty weird flop here. They both put a little bit of extra money in pre-flop. Came out 6, 8, 10, which, you know, there's definitely a straight possible. Club flush, maybe draw anyway. And Egption likes it enough, he manually bets 339. Bio calls, we're going to see the turn. And that opens up the possibility for a lot more straights. And kind of slowly closing the door. Slowly closing the door on the flush. Now it's completely closed. There's a straight possible, and Bio makes the final bet at the river, and Egption doesn't want none of it. We got another little raise on the button here. Egption throws all of his chips in. An Egption is definitely not afraid to gamble. And Bio still decides that he doesn't want to see anything of it. And here we are about an hour, 10-20 minutes in, and we're still pretty much even up. The blinds are now 150 and 300. So that means that both players started out with about 10 big blinds. It's going to start really making a difference. The blinds are going to force the end of the tournament within the next 2 or 3 levels. If they keep going neck and neck like this, the blinds will actually end the tournament. We got a little bit more than a min raise from Bio. Egption don't want no parts of it. And it looks like Egption's gonna go all in right away on the big blind. And it is getting to that point in the tournament with as far as blinds go. They're still pretty much neck and neck, but I don't see that lasting very much longer just because of the way the blind structure is moved up. You're going to see a lot more forcing of hands, a lot more all-in, just because there's no real choice. So somebody in the main lobby just said, that this tournament has just reached over 100 hands between the two of them. And it is definitely a scrap. I wouldn't have thought that it was going to go on this long. I had decided I wanted to do some commentary on some of these matches, mostly thinking that they was because they were going to be 10 to 15 minutes long. Of course, I've been doing commentary now for about 45 minutes. Egption's going to go all in. Bio's still playing it careful. He's been real reluctant to go head to head against Egption. And again, because he knows that if he's going to call somebody's all in, he actually has to win the showdown. It's not like you can bravado your way through it. You actually have to get the cards. And we're still pretty much neck and neck at 30-30 to 29-70. Both players just kind of looking at each other with this even up. And the next level's really going to cause problems. This is the last level where they have any room to breathe at all. When it hits to the next level, it's pretty much just going to force everybody on any two cards. It looks like Bio's pretty upset that he got a bunch of hands that got folded pre-flop. King, King, Jack, Jack, 10, 10 in a row. Which, whether he's telling the truth or not, is anybody's guess. I know poker players are a bit renowned for lying their frickin' asses off about what they have in their hole cards when they don't have to actually show. Not me, of course. I'm always 100% honest. And it looks like BioLuminous has pulled out into a slight lead with 3,500 to 2,400. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a couple shoves. Yep, right there it is, a shove from Egption. And we got some action. Jack King versus 6-7. And Egption catches the 7 on the river, giving him a decided lead over BioLuminous. He now has about 5,000 and Bio has 885. I'm not going to be surprised if we see a tilt shove from Bio, and nope, he keeps his cool and folds. Yeah, Egption definitely has gained momentum here. Bio's going to really need to scrap to get out of this. He's got 1 or 2 hands left. Oh, and Bio concedes a hand to him. And Bio makes a raise. Egption goes all in. Bio pretty much has to. He's got Ace King versus King 6, and it looks like the 6 is gonna beat the Ace King. And there we have it. That's the end of the game. Egption wins that round of the tournament. Bio is eliminated with Ace King versus King 6. And good match, guys. And we will see you next round.